All right, so welcome back from the break. You're still watching Morning Rush here on Metro Television with me, Desi the Starboy, and Anaya Tanabach. We're getting into a conversation about immunization, right? And, since the COVID era, that's about 2-3 years ago, a lot of that was happening. And even a few days ago, there were some reports about some of the vaccines that were taken back then and some of the effects that it was going to have on people that took that particular vaccine. But of course, when it comes to immunization in Ghana, there's been a lot of it, from yellow fever to polio to all of that. And, malaria is a very key one because as a country, we've been really battling with malaria over the years. So today, we're going to be talking about immunization or vaccine hesitancy with our guest this morning. And he is a medical doctor. Dr. EMMANUEL Addipa-ADAPOE is the senior medical officer at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. Well, you say Ridge Hospital, and he's our guest here to take us through all of this. We'll be asking questions about immunization. I know a lot of people ask questions, the way I'm a fire, is it going to have an effect on me, and all of these things. So we'll get to know more. We are live on Facebook, so do well to join us on Facebook also. Doc, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great. I'm one of those people that, immunization, a lot of people have these thoughts about it, about even the COVID era when we had to take the vaccine, and some people, I've also heard stories about people who say that, when my kid was really fine at a very young age and then took this particular thing and, it brought some sickness. So people are very skeptical when it comes to taking vaccines or, immunization, all of that. Generally, from your field of work, what are people's attitude or general behavioral attitude towards taking vaccines and towards immunization also?
Well, first of all, I will say that I have a first-hand knowledge in the difference the vaccine made pre-COVID and post-COVID, because I was one of the doctors in the front line. I have seen it. I have seen the deaths. I've seen the recoveries, and I have seen, post-vaccination, how the pandemic dovetailed towards the end, when on the 27th of March, 2022, the president declared the restrictions over finally. Bringing that to the general immunizations of children, for instance. Before immunization began, we had the vaccine preventable diseases, which started as 6 childhood killer diseases in the country. And children before the age of 1, most of them died because they were not immunized. And coming to the vaccination era, where now we have about 14 vaccines that have been approved by the Ministry of Health and Ghana Health Service for children, you realize that you do not even see. I went through medical school without seeing any of the vaccine preventable diseases. And many of my juniors who are even practicing now have not even seen what measles looks like and all that. We only read them in books because of the effect of these vaccines on our children who used to die before age 1. And so I will say positively, the vaccines have had a positive effect on the population and its survival. But conspiracy theories abound, misinformation abounds, disinformation about vaccination abounds, which leads to some of these vaccine hesitancies among the population.
I mean, you've touched on it, so I was going to come to the importance of immunization. All along these years, as you mentioned, some of the sicknesses that immunization has helped, combat over the years. If we just take us through that.
Well, like I said, 14 of those diseases, we call them the vaccine preventable diseases. It used to be 6 childhood killer diseases, which affected children around the 70s down the 80s. Anytime you had these diseases, even for polio, for instance, we have almost eradicated polio in Ghana. But when it was in its peak, even if the child survived, they became crippled. So, before the oral polio vaccine and the, inactivated polio vaccine, which is injectable, were introduced, most of the children who had them affected by polio, the least survival you had was a crippled child. And how productive will that child be? And what is the quality of life of that child? So it shows you the importance, to the extent that, you know, a medical student doesn't even know how polio looks like now, because we have almost eradicated it. And that is the importance of a vaccine. You know, the definition of a vaccine, it is actually an inactivated particle or the whole, either the virus or the bacterium which causes the disease. It is inactivated and then introduced into the body.
Okay.
To boost the immune system of the person, to produce antibodies against that. And when that is done, the advantage of that vaccine is that it does not cause the disease. And two, it does not cause the complications of the disease. However, it helps the body to keep a memory of how that disease looks like.
Okay, in your system.
In your system.
Okay.
By building soldiers, training them. And these soldiers we call memory cells and antibodies. Now, they are deployed and they are ready to fight the real disease when it comes. So immediately you get infected with that disease, you have a memory of it because it has already been introduced into your body.
Okay.
So then they are just activated and they kill the disease without causing the complications. So that is the importance of what a vaccine does to the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the misconceptions around vaccines, sometimes I wouldn't say are they right or they are not right, but what makes people panic when they hear about being vaccinated in our community? Because we experienced it with COVID.
Yes, so I'll say that vaccines, like any medication, have certain side effects that accompany them.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, even if you take paracetamol, you overdose it. It can cause an irreversible liver damage. So, based on these side effects that people see, they tend to say that it could be me.
Yeah.
And therefore will cause others to also boycott it altogether. Yeah. We've had some religious bodies even attributing the vaccine to the 666 and all that. Exactly. And that leads to, and that is a disinformation that leads to people hesitating to take the vaccine. And they adopt a watch and wait attitude.
Okay.
For instance, when the COVID came, many people thought it had come too early. And I said, well, it has come too early because all we contributed to it was fasting and prayer. And if God has answered our prayer by causing people who had the knowledge, the money, and the resources, human, material, monetary, to be able to produce the vaccine early, it is to protect us against the disease. Of course, side effects do occur. Okay. And when that happens, there are systems that the Ghana Health Service has put in place to mitigate it. Make sure that people report to either the FDA or to the Ghana Health Service and come to the hospital, and that side effect is addressed free of cost. You are treated, you are managed free of charge. And look, like I said, one major advantage of vaccination, the vaccination drive in this country, is our children growing beyond the neonatal period, and under 5 mortality has drastically reduced in the country.
Okay.
And because we are protecting some of these children, regardless of the fact that some of these diseases are gotten through unhygienic conditions. Polio, for instance, is a fecal-oral transmissible disease. And that means that if you have polio, it means that practically you have eaten somebody's feces. All right? And can you imagine the eateries that we have around and how people patronize these places and all that? Okay. But because of the vaccination, we do not have these diseases affecting people. And so that is how we have come, how far we have come by vaccination, and how we are reaching to people to, even from house to house. Yeah. The International Vaccine Week, we have
laid out
vaccinated, going to homes and getting people vaccinated.
But currently, which vaccines are really available now?
All the vaccines are available, from COVID to malaria to all the childhood vaccinations that I have spoken about. And, you know, even from the very day of birth, we call it day 0, children are vaccinated immediately. You have a vaccine against tuberculosis, which is the BCG vaccine. If you look at your shoulders, almost everybody has had that BCG scar. And that has safeguarded people from tuberculosis. Let me shock you. Everybody has a tuberculosis infection. Everybody.
Every child.
Everybody. Everybody has.
Even now.
Everybody. But because you have been vaccinated against it, and because you are immunocompetent, you are not showing it. Immediately you become immunocompromised. That is why people living with HIV tend to have TB. So when they come to the hospital and we are treating them, one thing we do, which can kill them, is tuberculosis, and therefore we test them for tuberculosis, and if they are positive, we treat them.
Wow. Doc, very interesting stuff you're saying here. As we are talking about all the positive things in our communities, how are we making sure that all these that you're talking about, the ordinary Ghanaian understands and knows that, you know, the promotion of vaccine and all of these things in our communities?
So that's why we are here today, and thank you for the opportunity. It gives us the mileage to report positively on the successes we are chalking with vaccination of our children especially, and the importance that we have to promote it ourselves. If you educate the person to understand the importance, he will buy in and also propagate the gospel. So this is one, using our media platforms, social media, mainstream media, print media, and all the media that we have available to us, using them to give us mileage. Secondly, opinion leaders are very important in the advocacy that we do. So once we get them to buy in, you realize that during the COVID vaccine era, we had the president himself getting vaccinated, we had the former president getting vaccinated, we had the National House of Chiefs coming to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital to get vaccinated. If these people who, you know, are custodians of our culture and opinions of people, you know, agree with us and partner with us locally, internationally, we move forward and we achieve the success.
But with all these, even though like the traditional leaders, the political leaders, and everyone come together, what innovative approach do you consider when you meet communities that are hesitant towards being vaccinated? When they say they won't, what do you normally do? So
we get they have people who they trust. People like influencers. You know, can you imagine if we are able to get Stoneboy and his clique, Shatawale and his people, you know, come together? People who otherwise not do things, you know, having their leaders, you know, show them that, oh, I had it and I am okay. I had it and I'm still alive. And bringing personalities like Nelson Mandela, who survived tuberculosis in prison. Did you know that?
Nelson Mandela?
Yes, no. Nelson Mandela. So South Africa would have lost a great icon if he was not treated for tuberculosis while he was in prison. So the fact that he was treated and he got better and became the president of South Africa, it means that you can also become the president of the republic one day if you avail yourself to be treated and to receive the vaccine. So that's how we are able to get people to accept.
Great. As we are wrapping up on the conversation, finally, we understand that there is a certain new wave of COVID. You know, is that true? And even with what everybody has said about the vaccine and all of that, do you think that even if it's true that a lot of people are getting infected again, people will take the vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, once we are campaigning that people should get vaccinated. I mean, I think 3 weeks ago we recorded about 31 cases. That was announced by the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, and therefore we, you know, added the COVID vaccination to the vaccines that we are propagating during the period of the National Vaccination Week. Now it's like a respiratory disease. So even in the hospitals, what we do if somebody presents with a respiratory disease is to do a bidirectional test of COVID and maybe tuberculosis. And maybe any of the influenza-like infections. You know, when you have a cold, you are coughing. We also promote the wearing of the masks when you come to a hospital or to areas that are crowded, especially in this season that the rains have begun, the humidity is down, people are beginning to show up with colds and flu symptoms. When people are coughing around you, you know, offer them a mask to wear so that they can protect themselves and protect you. And those are the things we do. We also encourage the hand washing. I think it's going down. You realize that throughout the COVID period, when we introduce the hand hygiene and proper hand washing techniques, people have not presented with cholera. Have you noticed that? We have not reported cases of cholera as we used to. So we encourage that those things should continue because all the infectious diseases, the principle of eliminating them is to break the chain of infection. Protect the susceptible host by quarantine, by isolation, by vaccination, and eliminate the causative organism by giving, you know, medication and vaccination, and also to break the chain of infection by making sure that people receive the adequate medications that are available for treatment.
Well, thank you very much, Doc, this morning. It's been insightful what you've been telling us about vaccine hesitancy and all that. So this will be going around in your communities. You get to see them there. Thank you very much, Dr. EMMANUEL Addipa-ADAPOE, for joining us. He is a senior medical officer at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital.